Play It Forward with Emma Hall Martin, writer, director of a really thoughtful, moving, challenging film called Congratulations. Emma, welcome on the show. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Would you like to share anything about Congratulations or yourself or anything, or just let's dive right in?
Yeah,
Whatever.
well, I'm doing my MFA in screenwriting and directing at Columbia right now. And this was my technically like my third film in that process, but my first like real film, I'd say.
Oh, cool. Interesting. When we spoke earlier, I was like, I wonder where she goes to school, but I didn't want to ask. But it's interesting, kind of putting the pieces together. I know Columbia has a little smaller of a program than NYU, but they're both, super well known for their film programs. So congratulations is, it's really powerful for a short film and any film, it's just really well done. I mean, building up the character, building up the plot, the drama, the way you've laid everything out from beginning to end, it was great. And I have a daughter; she's 3, so it's like, what woman has not faced some sort of something sexual misconduct at the very least from figures of authority? I think it's really common. It's just so germane socially. So how do we talk about it? And this film certainly does that in a really powerful way. So the first question is, what was the inspiration in you for making this movie?
Yeah, it was exactly that. I really wanted to explore the moment in a girl's life when her sexuality is kind of taken away from her. And I think that so often happens before she even really realizes that that's what she possesses. It's so about like the perception that other people have of the girl or the woman. And so quickly that's like dominated by men and by adults. And before she can even really understand it herself, it's really taken away from her, that agency.
Well,
So that's what I wanted to explore.
I would say your film is even deeper than that, because that's kind of like the surface layer, and as true as all that is, it's so much more complicated. And that's why I really liked your film, because it really captures the complexity, and the complexity comes in from, I'll just name a couple of things that happened in the movie. Like, one of my favorite parts in the movie was when the caterer, who, that young boy man, that transitionary, right, young adult, she asks him to zip her dress, and he touches her and she's frightened, right? So that is so powerful, that powerful element where you're still a kid, but you're exploring with very adult things that are scary. And so you're it's like a moth to the flame thing. And I think there is one of the things that lens is the humanity, of course, on the girl's side, but also the responsibility. She has a response. She brought that upon herself, and the smoking and the way she dresses, and it's certainly, there is some sexuality, there's a lot of sexuality in it, and that wanting to be, that. So I thought that brought a really great dimension to it. And the father, who is revealed later, that stepfather figure, he, seems like kind of a nice guy, right? He's like not like the typical villain. So that lends another dimension to it, and complexity to it. So it's like, yes, and there's more. And so to go back to the first question of like what, there's such a depth I feel like we can mine there, as far as like, and it kind of lends to this next question, and maybe you could speak to both, is like, you know, what is the film saying? Like, what did you want to say with the movie? And was that part of the inspiration?
I don't know that I really, when I'm writing, I don't really think about what I want to say. I really think about what I want to explore. So like that moment with the cater waiter, touching her on the back. Like, I think for that character and for like kids of that age, they're still sort of in this play mode and they don't totally understand the consequences of their actions. They're really just like exploring. So for her to like ask him to unzip her, she's totally flirting. She's totally like, that is the goal there, but she doesn't understand the repercussions of those actions for an adult and how far that can be taken. So I think like it's the problem with that moment isn't necessarily in like what she's her goals and like what she wants, but it's in like how he takes that away and takes it on for himself. So I really, yeah, like with both of those characters and all of the scenarios, I just kind of wanted to like see how, like where that goes and how like these characters can interact based on like my experiences and experiences of a lot of women I know. So yeah, I don't know that I was really like trying to say anything as much as just explore.
Well,
Yeah.
that's great. I totally get it. I think another way of kind of helping um, the conversation around the meaning of the movie is, now that you've made the film and you look at it, what do you feel the message of it is?
I think a big theme that sort of revealed itself like during the process was that the the betrayal doesn't really lie in like the action so much as the reactions, and that this character probably would have been totally fine if someone had just talked to her afterwards, if her stepfather had talked to her, or if she'd gotten to talk to her mom, or if her friend had been a little more helpful in like bringing an adult in. So that was a big thing that I kind of that landed with me. And then the other thing was that going into this, I always really was like, I don't think that he did anything. I don't think that the stepfather really did anything other than like probably get a little too personal with his soon to be stepdaughter. That, you know, he was probably pretty drunk and like maybe just kind of crossed the line of like adult and child, just getting a little too personal. But everyone on the crew and in the cast was really certain that he did something, you know, untoward. So that was interesting, and I wasn't super attached to it being like ambiguous. I was fine with people thinking whatever because that just wasn't really the point for me. So it's been interesting also like talking with people who've now seen the film and hearing their reactions. And for the most part, they also thought like, oh, he definitely did something. But hearing like other people who maybe thought something else is also interesting and cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think for me, it's not so much important as, did he or didn't he? I think what's most important is exactly what you said, is that the fact that there was no conversation, it's the reactivity or the lack of an adult response, to this incident. Um, totally agreed. So the last question is, in retrospect, what have you learned about yourself making this movie?
Mm. I definitely learned a little bit more about um, my struggles in the process of practical filmmaking, like practical production, being on set, and how much that feels related to me being a woman, that I find myself questioning whether I'm right a lot of the time on set, and assuming that other people are know more or are are better equipped than I am to like do something in the process of making the film. Um, and I knew that that was something that I struggled with, but on this film in particular, I knew it so well. I had watched this movie in my head a million times. And yet, like the first day on set, when um, the first setup wasn't what I had talked with my team about, um, I immediately thought, like, oh, I must be wrong. And that was a really like kind of brutal thing to realize about myself, like what an uphill battle that is going to be probably my entire career. The self-doubt. And it was really amazing to have a team that was so supportive, and that I could sort of express that to and not receive any judgment, and really just receive support. So that was a really big lesson for me to look out for. Like, oh, I'm questioning myself, not because not like in a good artistic creative way, but in a shameful kind of like down-putting way. So that was probably the biggest lesson.
Well, if I can offer you any encouragement, working myself on set, I think if you get 3 more films under your belt, you'll be fine, because, it's a very frightening process. First, you're responsible for so much, you're responsible for so many people, and you're responsible for creating a vision. And there's, a whole range of expertise that you have in one area that oversees all these other areas of expertise. But then these other people have the more detailed level of expertise that you have to trust. And, so it's a fine balance. And I think, it's just natural. I mean, I remember I was just, my first larger production when I had, I don't know, 15 people or 20 or something. I mean, I was just like, oh my God, this is like, I was very, maybe more masculine as far as like, okay, we're doing this, and that. And people hated me. And, I think a lot of people experience that as well. But then I got to a level where I was able to just feel more confident, and things weren't as intense. And so I was able to loosen up and kind of still get the same job done, but with a more kind of a fluid approach, and less kind of like I'm at war. So maybe we come at it from these, different masculine, feminine perspectives. But it's a balance, and probably need both.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the end of the shoot too, like the very last shot, I was like I burst into tears after I called cut, because it was exactly what I had pictured all along. So
It's
it really
awesome.
was a lesson to like trust myself. And as
Yeah.
long as I'm being a good leader and a kind leader, and open to other people, I'm on the right path, and I can trust my instincts.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's what it's all about. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Emma
Yeah,
Hall Martin, writer director. Congratulations. We look forward to seeing more of your stuff.
thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great day. I'll talk to you.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.